What is non-farm payroll, otherwise known as NFP, and why is it so important? Well, that's a great question, and I'm so glad you asked it. So, NFP is an economic data release, and it's released on the first Friday of every month by the US Bureau of Labor Statistics. Now, NFP is the most important economic data release in the world and is watched by every single market. Not just the markets that are influenced by the US, like Euro US dollar or the US stock markets, things like that, but actually all of them. So even like the FTSE 100 in the UK and the CAC 40 in France and whatever else, they're going to be influenced by this release. This release shows the employment situation in the US. And of course, the US is the biggest and most important market in the world. So it's the most important economy, and we care about the employment situation over there. So the statistic shows us the number of paid workers in the US, excluding US government workers, private household employees, employees of non-profit organizations that provide assistance to individuals, and farming employees due to the cyclical nature of farming. So the release will typically show us the number of jobs added or taken away from the economy in the previous month. So for example, if it's 192,000 jobs added, it might say plus 192,000, right? So it's 192,000 jobs added to the economy. The release also shows us other important information about the employment situation, the most important one being the current unemployment percentage. Now, since we know that the US Federal Reserve are so data-driven, the unemployment percentage is one of the key metrics that they follow. That one and inflation and a couple of others, but unemployment is one of the really main ones. So that's why it has such an influence on everything, because it's the one that could show whether the US economy is doing well or doing badly, and it could also show what the next central bank policy is going to be. So since this release is so important, then we really need to understand how to interpret it. So on your screen now, you can see what a typical NFP release looks like, the information that's included there. So obviously that includes non-farm payrolls, the month-on-month change of that amount, the unemployment rate, the private payrolls, the participation rate, the average hourly earnings, and the average work week. So from that data, we can then interpret what that means for the market. So in general, leading up to the release, like with most other economic data releases, there'll be a consensus view of what the amount should be. So obviously now, if the actual release ends up being above that expectation, then the economy is stronger for the previous month than what people expected. And if it's below that, the economy is weaker, potentially weaker than what people expected from the previous month. So can you imagine what this means for the market? If 150,000 jobs are priced into people's estimations for things, like the way people are viewing the market, if it ends up being very much above or below that, then the market's going to move accordingly. So if it's above, then logically speaking, the US economy is showing strength, so things related to the US dollar or the US economy are going to be stronger, going to grow. And if it's weaker, then people are going to want to move their investments away from the US dollar and the US economy, the US stock market, so they're going to take it away. Now that's excluding if there's things on the table like quantitative easing, which may come into play if the economy's weakening, then negative signs in the employment rate could encourage people that quantitative easing is going to come into play. So ignoring those, talking just logically of the pure, what we expect in a typical situation, it would be that above the expectations is positive for the economy, positive for the stock market, positive for the US dollar, and below expectations is negative for all of the ones I just said. So what can we expect on the day of the NFP release? Well, the actual release is going to take place at 8:30 Eastern time. So if you're in the UK like I am and you're trading European markets, it means that you've got the whole morning leading up to that release, because that's going to be just after lunchtime. So the morning's going to be quiet and quite flat. No one's going to commit to certain positions. It's going to be trading in very small ranges. But as we get closer to the release, the market starts to get choppier. Okay, it's going more frantically up and down. Not too much, but a little bit more as people start to expect or anticipate what's going to happen. You know, the old thing of buy the rumor, sell the news. Yeah, that happens. So even when NFP comes out in line with expectations, there'll still be big movements in one direction or another because of people leading up, like having speculative positions leading up to the announcement. Then when the announcement happens, they move their money elsewhere. But anyway, leading up to the announcement, we're going to see some fluctuations in the market. And when the news breaks, we're going to see spikes. A lot of volatility is going to move strongly in one direction, but it may spike in the other direction first. It's people interpreting what this economic data means for the market in split seconds. So it can go all over the place. Even if you choose the correct direction, like say you think the market's going to go up and it goes up, you may still get stopped out in the process because there may be a spike down first. So you always want to be really careful during these releases. So what happens is that whatever the release actually is, it's going to be either above or below or in line with expectations, and the market's going to adjust in price according to that data and what it means. So you can imagine the bigger the miss on either the upside or the downside, the bigger the spike and the more volatility there's going to be as people more and more want to adjust their positions. So what I'd say is this: on the day of NFP, you want to be very cautious. I wouldn't hold on to any short-term positions when the NFP release is made. If you have long-term positions which are holding for weeks or months, then okay, feel free to hold it, because eventually the market's going to adjust back to, you know, the normal sort of progression, the normal way that it was moving before. It's going to be a small fluctuation in the short term. But don't forget that the NFP release itself can change the way your analysis looks. So you want to revisit your analysis and see if holding on to that long-term trade is the right thing to do after the release is made. But you don't necessarily need to come out the trade for the NFP release unless you're in the short term, okay? So if you're talking about minutes, hours, or days, maybe you want to be out of the market during the NFP because it can be frantic. You don't want to lose money unnecessarily. Be safe, be cautious, always err on the side of caution. Don't go risking stuff. You know, NFP can be a lottery, it could be a 50-50 gamble, and it entices people because when people start seeing that volatility, they can't ignore it. It's like kids in a sweet shop, they want everything. But we have to be sensible as traders and protect our capital before anything else. So just to wrap it up, NFP is an important economic data release. It's released on the first Friday of every month. It shows the strength of the US economy through the employment changes, and you should be very cautious trading at that time. Keep an eye out for the consensus view leading up to the release, and then be very careful at the release itself and directly afterwards. So guys, if you like this video, remember to hit that subscribe button for more videos about learning to trade. And if you want to learn specifically our unique and exclusive method of trading, make sure that you're a member of our Inner Circle mailing list. It's free to join and you're going to get some free gifts. So click the link in the description box, give us a thumbs up if you like the video, and leave a comment with any questions that you have and I will answer all of those. Thanks a lot for watching, guys. I appreciate it. As always, take care. I'll see you soon.